Mira sat quietly in the white room. A small glowing band rested around her head. The scientists on the other side of the glass whispered and took notes. She felt like a test subject. But this was not just another science project. This was the Intermind Bridge program. For the first time in history, humans and telepathic beings from the planet Elion would share thoughts without words. She looked around. Everything was calm, cold, empty, until the door opened and he stepped in. Fallon was tall and silent. His skin shimmered faintly, like soft silver under moonlight. His eyes were large and deep. No mouth ever moved when Elion spoke. They communicated. With their minds, no noise, no speech, only thought. Myra's heart beat faster. She had trained for weeks for this. Still, now that he stood before her, she felt nervous. Would he hear her thoughts right away? Would she embarrass herself? She sat up straighter and nodded politely. Fallon nodded back and sat across from her. A gentle light blinked green above. Their chairs. The connection was live. Myra waited. Nothing happened. Then, suddenly, she felt something like a breeze in her mind. A soft touch, like a whisper, but not in her ears. In her thoughts. Do not be afraid. The voice was not her own. It was warm, calm. Fallon was speaking to her without moving a muscle. Mira blinked and tried to respond. Not with her mouth, but with her mind. Can you hear me? Pause. Then a soft reply. Yes, it felt strange but peaceful. Mira relaxed a little. The silence in the room now felt different. It was full of meaning. Fallon sent her a picture. A memory. A small blue flower floating in a shallow pond. She saw it clearly in her mind. A place he remembered from childhood. Mira felt a wave of sadness with the image. Something had happened there. Something he had lost. She whispered gently in her thoughts. It's beautiful. But it feels lonely. Fallon did not answer right away. Then came a single thought. Yes, that is where I first knew silence can hurt. Myra placed her hand on the table. She wished she could touch his hand. Not to comfort him in words, but to show she understood. She had known pain like that too. Not on another planet, but in her own small room on Earth. After her father left and her mother cried herself to sleep, she opened her heart and shared that memory. Fallon received it. Myra felt him pause. Then a light warmth spread in her chest. It was not her own. It was his. Thank you for showing me your truth. Their eyes met. No word spoken. Yet so much was said. The scientists behind the glass were excited. They were watching something rare. But Myra no longer noticed them. She only felt the strange and quiet rhythm between her and the one across the table. More memories passed between them. Not full pictures, just fragments. A falling star, a quiet laugh, the feel of rain. She could not explain how it worked. It just flowed. Thou, in single quotes, his thoughts were slow and careful, but kind. He never pushed too deep. He never searched too far. He simply listened. Then Myra felt something unexpected. Her own thoughts, the ones she usually kept hidden, began to rise. Her doubts, her dreams, her quiet hopes. Fallon received them gently. You wonder if you are enough. Myra felt exposed, but not ashamed. Sometimes she answered. Alan's reply came after a long pause. You are more than enough. Even your silence speaks. That one thought stayed in her mind long after the session ended. The green light blinked red. The room returned to its cold stillness. Fallon stood up. Myra stood too. She did not want it to end. But rules were rules. 1 session per day. No physical contact. No voice. No memory sharing outside the program limits. Fallon turned to go. But just before he reached the door, Myra thought one last thing. Thank you for hearing. He turned and nodded once. His eyes held a softness she had never seen in another being. Then he left. Myra sat alone. Her head no longer carried the band. Her mind no longer touched another. But her heart felt strangely full. For the first time in a long while, she did not feel lonely, and he had not even spoken a single word. He had only kissed her thoughts. The next morning, Myra walked slowly toward the glass dome at the center of the base. This place was called the Garden of Silence, a peaceful space built for human and alien bonding sessions. It was full of soft plants, glowing trees, and quiet. Paths. No guards stood near it. No one rushed. No loud voices. Only calm. She entered through a round glass door. Thalen was already there, standing near a soft blue tree with leaves like feathers. He turned when he saw her. No words. Just a still moment shared between two very different beings who had started to understand each other. Myra sat on the soft grass. Thalen joined her. They wore no headbands today. This was not a test session. It was an approved quiet meeting, part of the new emotional observation program. Dr. Rowe had approved it after noticing how calm Myra's mind became after each link. Scientists were learning that peace was a form of progress. They sat in silence. But silence now had a new meaning. Thalen sent the first thought. This place is like home to me. Myra closed her eyes and replied in her mind. It feels safe. Thalen moved one hand and lightly touched the leaf of a glowing plant beside him. It lit up gently, then dimmed. Myra watched, curious. Does your planet have plants like Thistlein? Answered without words. A clear picture filled Myra's mind. A wide-open meadow on Elion, with glowing white trees and silver flowers that hummed in the night. She felt a cool wind in the image, a sound like waves and stars breathing together. She opened her eyes. The vision faded, but the feeling remained. It's beautiful. She thought. Thalen paused. You say that with sadness. Myra looked down. Her fingers touched the grass. She had always wanted to see the stars up close, to walk under skies not found on Earth. But humans were still learning, still limited. Because I may never go there. Thalen leaned closer, not with his body, but with his presence. His mind moved gently toward hers. Then let me bring it to you. Myra felt warmth in her thoughts. Not heat, but a soft light that came from being seen. He did not try to fix her sadness. He simply stayed with it, like a friend who knew how to sit with quiet pain. They sat like that for some time. No one spoke. No one moved fast. The garden held them in peace. Then Myra had an idea. She smiled to herself and sent a small sound into her thoughts. A tune. A simple melody her mother used to hum while cooking in the kitchen. Just 5 notes. But soft and full of memory. She sent it to Thalen. At first he did not react. Then slowly he turned toward her. His lips did not move. Elions did not use mouths for speech. But Thalen did something unexpected. He hummed the melody aloud. It was quiet, a little uneven. But Myra heard it clearly. She looked at him in surprise. His voice was low and soft, not quite human, not quite alien, just real. You hummed it, she said in her thoughts. It lives in your memory. Thalen replied, so it lives in me now too. Myra felt a flutter in her chest. Not fear, not confusion. Something else. Something like joy and sadness mixed together. Why did you never speak before? Thalen paused. Because Elions are taught to only share what is safe. Thoughts are safe. Feelings are not. Myra nodded slowly, and Thalen looked at her with steady eyes. Now I choose to feel. They stayed in the garden until the sky above them began to shift from blue to violet. Artificial sunlight turned soft. A small bell rang in the distance. Their session time was over. Myra stood first. Thalen followed. She looked up at him. Thank you for today. Thalen's thoughts came slower this time. You gave me more than a thought. You gave me a sound. a memory I did not own. Now I do. Myra smiled. She began walking toward the exit. Before stepping out, she turned back and thought one last message. You can speak to me with sound any time you want, then watched her go. He said nothing, but she felt it, that quiet warmth again, the same feeling that once passed through a single flower, a feeling that now lived between two hearts in a silent garden. The following day, Myra waited in her room longer than usual. Her session had not been scheduled yet. She checked the digital board on her wall. No name, no time, nothing. She walked quickly to Dr. Rowe's office. The hallway was quiet, the soft blue lights flickering above her head. When she reached the door, it slid open. Dr. Rowe looked up from his screen. He smiled politely, but with tired eyes. You are not on the list today. Why not? Dr. Rowe tapped on his screen. He hesitated before answering. There has been a report from the Elion Command. They believe Fallon has formed a link that is too deep. Emotional links are not part of the agreement. It is under review. Myra's heart sank. We never broke the rules. We just listened to each other. Dr. Rowe nodded slowly. You did more than listen. You shared memory, emotion. That is something Elions fear. Their culture sees emotion as a risk. Myra clenched her hands, but it was peaceful. It helped us both. That may be true. But Fallon's commander does not agree. Myra left the office with her thoughts heavy. She had not seen Fallon for 2 days now. She wondered where he was, whether he was allowed to think of her, whether he was being punished just for feeling. That night, Myra sat by her window. The sky above the base showed a mix of stars and clouds, artificial but still beautiful. She closed her eyes and reached out with her thoughts. She did not expect anything, but she tried. Are you there for a long time? There was silence. Then a soft touch reached her mind, like wind against her skin. Here you. Myra smiled. Her heart beat faster. Are you all right? I am held in observation, not allowed to communicate. But I had to answer you. You are not alone. Thalen's voice in her mind was weaker now, but still gentle, still full of care. They say I have changed, that I feel too much, that I opened the wrong door. What do you feel when I think of your thoughts? I feel light. When I remember your melody, I feel warmth. When I am silent, I hear you still. I do not understand all these feelings, but I do not wish to forget them. Myra leaned back in her chair. Neither do I. Next morning, she received a note under her door, a printed message. It was simple. Your request for non-scientific contact has been denied. All communication is now paused. Please return to standard routine. Myra folded the paper and kept it in her pocket. She did not cry, but her chest felt heavy. For the rest of the day, she followed her schedule. She ate. She cleaned her station. She entered observation rooms, but her mind was somewhere else. That evening, she entered the old garden dome without permission. The lights inside were dim. The blue tree still glowed gently. She sat down in the same spot where they had once shared thoughts. The silence around her was strong, but her memories were stronger. She placed her hand on the soft grass and closed her eyes. She reached out again. Nothing came. Still, she spoke in her mind. I do not know if you can hear me. I know they told you not to answer. I know they think feeling is weakness, but what I shared with you was not weakness. It was peace. A long moment passed. Then a voice, soft and slow. I am not far. Her eyes opened. She turned. No one was there. The voice came again. Inside her mind, they placed me in the west wing, not too far from this garden. I hear you when you call. Even when I do not answer, she smiled and held back tears. Are you afraid? Yes. But I am not alone in my fear. That makes it easier to hold. Mira closed her eyes again. Then hold it with me. They stayed that way for a while. No more words. Just shared presence. Before leaving, Mira thought, one last thing, I will return tomorrow, even if I cannot speak, even if I cannot hear. I will still sit where we first understood each other. Thalen sent only a feeling, a quiet echo of peace. And she carried it with her through the night. The next few days moved slowly for Myra. She followed every rule. She showed up on time for her assigned tasks. She completed her logs. She smiled at people when needed. But inside, her mind waited for night to fall. It was only in the evening, when she entered the garden dome alone, that she felt anything real. She sat in the same place every time, under the same glowing tree. The grass always felt soft under her fingers. She never knew if Thalen would answer. She only hoped. Sometimes she heard nothing. Sometimes he whispered back, I am still here. That was all she needed to keep returning. Then one night, something changed. Myra had been feeling tired for days. Her head often felt heavy. Her thoughts blurred. The doctors said it was normal exhaustion from the training weeks. They told her to rest more. So that night, she slept early. Her dreams came fast, but they did not feel like dreams. She stood on a wide hill under a dark sky filled with silver stars. The air around her smelled like snow and flowers at the same time. A soft wind brushed her face. Before her, a lake stretched across the land. Its water shimmered white and blue light. The surface was still like glass. And in the center of the lake stood Thalen. Was not far, not close either, just present. He raised his hand slowly and pointed at the water. Mira looked down. Her reflection stared back, but her eyes were glowing softly, like the Eliange looked up again. Thalen was no longer standing in the lake. He was beside her, not touching, just near. She wanted to speak, but no sound came. Then she realized she did not need sound. Are you dreaming with me? Yes. This place is real. It lives in my memory. Now I give it to you. This lake, this hill, this sky, all of it was his. A part of his home planet. A place from long ago. He shared it with her as if offering a gift. Why this place? Because this is where I used to walk alone. But now, I remember it with someone beside me. Mira felt something warm in her chest. Not just peace. Not just beauty. But something deeper. She stood still and closed her eyes. Thalen's thoughts touched hers again. I cannot reach you in the day, but in dreams, your mind opens like a door, and I enter without fear. Myra opened her eyes and looked around the lake once more. If this is your memory, why do I feel like I belong here? Because you listened to it. You did not visit as a guest. You stepped in as if it were your own. Myra smiled in the dream. Then I will return here every night until we can meet in the day again. Thalen said nothing more, but his presence stayed beside her, like the wind, like the light, like a feeling that never rushed, but never left. The dream faded slowly, like mist rising from the lake. When Mira opened her eyes the next morning, tears rested quietly on her cheeks. But she was smiling. She sat up in her bed and looked out the window. The same sky, the same buildings. But something felt new. She had touched another world that afternoon. She went to Dr. Rowe's lab. She requested to see the dream files connected to Elion memories. He looked at her with interest. Why? I think Thalen sent me a dream, but it felt too real to be from my own mind. Dr. Rowe raised an eyebrow. He shared a memory while you were unconscious. Yes, that has never happened before. Myra nodded. Then maybe it is time for something new to begin. Dr. Rowe said he would review her request, but Myra already knew the truth. She had felt it. She had walked on Elion soil in her sleep. She had seen the stars from his sky that evening. She returned to the garden. The Tree glowed softly again. The air was still. She placed her hand on the ground. I remember your lake, and I remember you beside it. Fallon's thought returned, stronger this time. Then it is yours now, Mira did not reply. Her thoughts were quiet, not because she had nothing to say, but because silence had become their language, a silence filled with understanding, and with something else, something like the beginning of love. The sun above the base was rising again. Its soft golden glow passed through the glass walls of the observation tower. Mira stood near her window, watching the light grow. She had not heard from Fallon for 2 nights now. No dream, no thought, only quiet silence. She tried again that morning. She closed her eyes and opened her mind. Can you hear me? No reply came. The silence felt heavier than before. Later that day, Myra was called to Dr. Rowe's lab. She entered with a calm face, but her hands were cold. Dr. Rowe looked serious. You are being removed from the Elion program. Mira did not speak. Her heart already knew it before her ears heard it. Commander Ellen from Elion leadership has declared Fallon emotionally compromised. He is no longer part of the bridge team. All links must end. Mira kept her voice steady. So I cannot see him again. Dar. Rowe sighed and shook his head. Not under the current terms. They fear your connection has gone beyond thought. And they are right. Myra nodded once, then turned and walked out. She did not cry. He walked straight to the garden dome. The glass doors opened for her, like always. The trees still glowed. The air still smelled soft. But something was missing. She sat down and placed her hand on the ground. If you can hear me, please know this. They can remove names from a list. They can take you out of a room, but they cannot remove the thought you left in my heart. She waited still. No answer that night. She made a decision. One the rules would not allow. At midnight, when the halls were quiet, Mira moved toward the west wing, the part of the base where visiting Elions were kept in secure rooms. She wore a plain coat and walked with slow steps. No one noticed her when she reached the last door. She paused. It had a small glass window inside. Fallon sat still. His eyes were closed. He looked calm. But Myra knew the calmness came from control, not peace. She placed her hand against the glass. He opened his eyes. They looked at each other without speaking. She sent a single thought through the barrier. I never said goodbye. For a moment, she believed he would not answer. Then she felt it. His mind brushed hers with care. I never wanted to. Myra's eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. They stood like that for a long moment. Just eyes, just thoughts, just a connection too strong to be broken by rules. Suddenly, a soft alarm buzzed from the hall behind her. A voice came through the speaker. Unauthorized presence detected in West Wing. Return to assigned quarters, Mira whispered. To the glass. I will wait for you. Nodded once. She turned and left before the guards arrived. The next morning, Mira was called again. This time not by Dr. Rowe, but by the Central Council of the program. Human and Elion officers sat together behind a large desk. A woman from the human side spoke first. Your behavior was a violation. Entering the restricted wing was not permitted. Myra answered calmly. I did not speak. I did not harm. I only stood. Commander Ellen from Elion leadership leaned forward. Fallon was trained to avoid emotion. He broke that training. He hummed your memory. He shared forbidden dreams. He responded to your pain. That is not our way. Myra looked at him with quiet strength. Then, maybe your way is changing. The room fell silent. She continued. We did not ask to feel. It happened because we listened, because we trusted, and because silence is not always empty. Dr. Rowe sat to the side. He had said nothing so far. Now he stood. We began this program to test communication. But what they created is not just communication. It is understanding. The council members looked at each other. Papers were moved. Notes were shared. After a few minutes, The decision Camethalin would not be returned to the bridge. Team Myra would not be allowed further contact. The project would continue. But only under strict control. The connection was over. Myra walked back to her room slowly. But she felt no regret that night. As she lay in bed, she felt something again, a presence. A whisper, a feeling. It did not speak in words. It did not send a picture. It was just a soft warmth. One that wrapped around her thoughts and stayed until she fell asleep. A soft rain fell across the glass ceiling of Myra's room. The drops made gentle sounds that reminded her of the lake in Thalin's memory. Since the council's decision, everything had changed. Her schedule no longer included any Elion programs. The garden dome had been closed. The West Wing was under new security rules. But something inside Myra had not changed. Each night, she still sat quietly by her window and opened her thoughts. She never called out. She never expected a reply. But she listened, and in that stillness she began to notice something. Her dreams were no longer just dreams. Sometimes she saw small lights in the air. Sometimes she heard faint sounds that did not belong to Earth. And once she saw a glowing tree standing. Alone in a quiet field, she spoke to Dr. Rowe. A week later, I think something inside me is changing. He watched her closely. What do you mean? After? The memory Thalin shared in my sleep. Something feels open. I feel emotions more deeply. I sometimes know what people are thinking before they speak. Dr. Rowe leaned back in his chair. We ran tests on your brainwaves after the final session. There were unusual patterns. A soft echo of Elion frequencies, so I can still feel him, not just him. You have become partially receptive. A rare effect. We have never seen it before. Is it dangerous? No, but it is powerful. And rare connections like this leave a mark. Myra stood in silence for a moment. Then she asked the question that lived quietly in her heart. Where is Thalin? Now he was returned to Elion 3 days ago. Myra felt her breath catch so furious. But not out of reach. Later that evening, she returned to her room. The rain had stopped. The sky above the glass ceiling was clear. Stars blinked above her like quiet messengers. She sat on her bed and closed her eyes. No thoughts, no questions. Only stillness, and then it came a feeling. It moved across her mind like a soft wind. She recognized it at once. He was reaching out, even across light years. Even without permission, she felt his presence. I am here. The words were not spoken. They were felt. Myra placed her hand over her heart. Can you hear me too? Yes. Tears formed in her eyes. Not from sadness. From the quiet joy of being found again. They did not share pictures or long messages that night. They only sat together and thought. You are different now. How are you? I carry your memory, and I carry your voice. There are rules here. There are rules here too, but the stars do not follow. A soft peace filled her mind. It wrapped around her like a blanket of light. The next morning, Myra woke with a new feeling. Not just hope. Strength. She returned to Dr. Rowe and spoke with calm purpose. I want to work on the Elion signal research. He looked surprised. That program is still early. Just theories and data, but it is the only way to understand how thought can travel beyond space. And I have lived that experience. He nodded slowly. I will speak to the council. Weeks passed. Myra began working with the signal team. Her mind, now slightly tuned to Elion waves, helped decode emotional frequencies no one else could track. She began to map patterns that matched Thalin's thoughts. Each night, she listened. Sometimes she heard music in her dreams, sometimes just silence, but silence with presence. One evening, she stood outside alone under the dome roof. The stars above seemed brighter than before. She opened her thoughts with care. Are you still awake? Yes, I miss the sound of your voice. I miss the warmth of your thoughts. One day, will we meet again? One day. If time and trust allow, will you wait? I already am. The stars did not move. The wind did not rise. But Myra felt a movement in her heart. It was not loud. It was not fast, but it was there steady, quiet, true between two worlds. They had found a way to stay. 1 year had passed since the last time Mira stood in front of Fallon. A full year of silent thoughts shared across stars. She had become part of a new team called Skybridge, focused on peaceful human-alien communication. The program was still growing, but Myra had already helped build something no one thought was possible. She had designed a chamber called the Link Room. It was built from human steel and Elion crystal. It allowed thought to travel with clarity between distant minds. Mira worked on it day and night. Every wire and signal reminded her of him. Then, one morning she was called into the main control center. Dr. Rose stood beside a new face. A tall, Elion woman with a silver robe and calm eyes. Myra. This is Minister Kale from Elion. She brings news. The Elion woman stepped forward. We have studied your research. We have seen the changes in Fallon and in you. The council has approved a trial meeting between bonded minds. A meeting in person. On Earth, Myra could not speak for a moment. Her breath caught in her chest. Talon is coming here, yes. And he arrives today. Hours later, the base was silent again. Everyone stood near the new Link Room as the Elion shuttle landed just outside the dome. The glass doors opened. Wind moved through the air, and there he was. Talon stepped forward with steady steps. His eyes met hers across the short space between them. No words were needed. No sounds were made. They stood facing each other inside the chamber she had built. The soft lights around them pulsed with every shift of emotion. Myra took a step forward, then another. Fallon did the same. They met in the center of the room. No guards, no scientists. Just them. Myra reached out and touched his hand for the first time. It was warm, steady, real. Her voice was quiet, but strong. You came back. Fallon nodded. You waited. Myra looked into his eyes. I would have waited for Verth. Placed one hand gently on her cheek. His thoughts moved softly into hers. You are the first mind I touched that gave me peace instead of questions. You are the first voice I heard without sound. And you are the first feeling I chose without fear. Myra closed her eyes. Your thoughts became my home, and yours became my guide. They stood that way for a long moment. Then Fallon leaned forward and rested his forehead gently against hers. The crystal walls around them glowed brighter. He spoke aloud for the second time in his life. Myra, she opened her eyes. His voice was soft, deeper than she remembered. But Kinthelan took her hands in his and held them near his heart. You let me kiss your thoughts, long before I ever touched your hand. And now, Myra answered with a smile, now I know what love sounds like without a single word. Thalen leaned closer, not with noise, not with pressure, just presence. Their lips met. It was not rushed, not forced. It was quiet, gentle, like a promise spoken in silence outside the chamber. No one moved. No one disturbed them inside. Only one truth remained. He had kissed her thoughts before he kissed her lips, and that was why the kiss felt like something already known, something already trusted, something already loved. The end.